regular Seward City Council meeting to order. Chief, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Roll call. Calhoun.
Here.
Casagrande is excused. Wells is excused. DeMoss.
Here.
McClure.
Here.
Osenga.
Here.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is citizen comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing. All persons desiring to address the council shall first secure permission from the presiding officer, approach the podium, and provide your name and if you are a resident of Seward for the record. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed in?
Okay, the first person signed in is Keith Campbell.
Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Keith Campbell, 1910 Forget-Me-Not Circle. I'm here because I'm concerned. I've heard a very, very valid rumor, I think, that the city's on the verge of sending back to a funder hundreds of thousands of dollars that were intended for use for energy conservation and things like that project. Don't know if that's true, but I'm here to defend the funds staying here because the museum library furnaces are set up to use the heat exchanger system like they have at the Sea Life Center, using seawater and the temperature differentials to heat and cool that building. Now the problem with the Sea Life Center is that they went directly into the ocean, and the little critters and snails and everything else tended to plug up the pipe. Our proposal for doing the same thing at the library and museum was to use a well, and I think he maybe even drilled a test well down 50, 60 feet in from the shore to facilitate and pipe it up to the building and use that heat exchange system on the furnaces to heat and cool that building. It was built to be the most efficient building in town, with at least the technology at the time was built. So it is a pretty economical building to operate, considering the square footage and things like that. And the community has made absolutely fabulous use of it since I think they were built. I don't think anybody contemplated the usage that, particularly that common room gets downstairs. And also the library and the museum are just well used. So I would implore you to at least reconsider sending the funds until you get that water piped in and utilize the furnaces the way they were designed to be used. You know, with that, I'll sit down. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, has anyone else signed in?
Yes, next signed in is Brad Snowden.
Yes, welcome.
My name is Brad Snowden. I live at 430 4th Avenue here in Seward. The subject I wanted to bring up is just start, this conversation on where our new cruise ship dock may be built and the convention center that would suit that facility. In the wintertime, I'm seeing it at the bottom of 4th Avenue, connected to the Sea Life Center. I believe it'll bring business in the wintertime and round out our community. I just want to start this for conversation's sake, for folks to look around and see what you think. Do you think that this facility, this kind of facility, a cruise ship dock and a convention center, would be better suited at the railroad dock, at what's zoned commercial or industrial now, or would be better located downtown and for our town? The conversation, I hope, will start, and I hope you will look and see what you think, and I'll follow up next council meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else signed in?
Yes, next, excuse me, next signed in is Joe Tudis.
Hello, I'm Joe Tugas, inside city limits. I'm here to speak of support on the library heat pump project. It takes great advantage of this amazing heat source we have in the North Pacific outside here. And it's had a lot of development that's gone into getting it to, as far as it is right now. There's some tremendous savings that could happen over time, but the gets away from burning diesel in the facility and does use more electricity. That it takes power to run everything, but it's a really cool project from what I've seen. There's been a lot of work put into it, and I've followed along from a long way off for a long time on it. I did do a bit of reading earlier about it, but don't know exactly where it stands right now. But with the funding that has been received and could be used, as well as the tremendous amount of grant funding that's out there, I think it would be a really intelligent thing for the city to continue to pursue. And then there's also other things as far as installing it. They rip up sidewalks and things like that to get plumbing through, particularly around City Hall, the Annex building, the library building. It would allow for the sidewalks to be heated as well for a very low cost. And it is a fairly expensive endeavor, but with everything, all the funding that's been provided and is available, I think it would be a very serious thing to look at. The Sea Life Center has had tremendous luck with theirs. Used to go in there in the back room and they had like school bus sized boilers down there that are now just big open areas that they've removed all that hardware. I believe they say they're saving roughly $15,000 a month in heating costs with the system that they have put in there. So, yeah.
Is anyone else signed in?
Yes, next we have Casey Warner.
Hi, my name is Casey Warner. I'm inside city limits. First, I want to thank administration and council for securing the 3-month extension for the funds that were provided for the heat loop project. I think it's really important that we have a clear path forward after that 3-month extension is up. Investing in renewable energy technology will help put Seward on the map, become a leader within our state, and ensure that we preserve our natural environment for our future generations. I'd like to ask council to revisit this project, potentially maybe in a work session and or doing an updated study on it to see what it would cost, maybe what kind of changes might need to happen to make it feasible for the city, or just really what the scope is. I think the last study that was done in the height of COVID, I think June of 2020. When I don't know if anybody knew what was happening. So now that we're kind of on a clearer path on the other side of 2020, I would like to kind of get a revisit to this project. So once we do come up on that 3-month extension timeline, we know where we're going to go. We're going to go for another extension. Are we going to potentially look at a different path for the project? And that's all I have, so thank you.
And
Oh,
me too.
okay.
Okay, thank you. Good job. Is there anyone else signed in?
Yes, last signed in, we have Porter.
Oh.
Do you want to say something else?
Who?
Yeah. Welcome, sir.
It's my brother.
So say your name,
Porter.
and then what would you like to say?
I'm Session George.
What would you want to say?
There's a source. Like, if there, how come you guys don't have any ice skate plates in the last one.
That's a good comment.
That's a new one. Good job.
All right. Thank you, guys. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? It's hard to follow that. Okay, hearing and seeing none. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and consent agenda, and I'm looking for a motion in a second.
I move for the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Are there any changes, amendments? Looks good, Madam Clerk. I think we're ready to call for a vote.
Okay, voting on the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda. Osenga,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Leclerc,
Yes.
and Mayor Terry.
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda are approved. And approved on tonight's consent agenda is the introduction of Ordinance 2022-004, amending Seward City Code, Chapter 2.30, Boards and Commissions, Article 2, Seward Planning and Zoning Commission, by enacting Section 2.30.217, staff assistance to commission, and providing for housekeeping amendments. This ordinance has been introduced and will come to a public hearing and enactment on February 14th. You have approved Resolution 2022-009, adopting the Port of Commerce Advisory Board priorities from February 2022 to February 2023. Resolution 2022-010, approving Amendment Number 3 to the operating contract between the City of Seward and Seward City Tours. Also approved Resolution 2022-011, authorizing signatures for all city bank accounts and rescinding all previous resolutions in conflict herewith. Resolution 2022-012, authorizing payment to the Seward Senior Center in the amount of $80,000. You have expressed a non-objection to the renewal of liquor license number 3909 for package store for the Seward Marketplace. You have appointed Victoria Monaco to the Planning and Zoning Commission with a term to expire February 2023. And you have approved the continuation of the Portland Commerce Advisory Board.
And one more, because my eye skips over lines too, but approval of the January 10th City Council regular meeting minutes.
Thank you,
Which
Madam
it just
Mayor.
is skinny there, that's why. But
Thank you very much.
yeah, yeah. Next on the agenda, oh, we're ready for a vote. Oh, no, we did that. We're good. Okay. Next on the agenda is special orders, presentations, and reports. There are no proclamations and awards. And following that is the city manager's report, and that's found starting on page 4. Madam City Manager.
Thank you. I did want to comment on the heat loop project funding. No funds have been returned to the funder because we haven't received any. We won't receive any until the project happens. And yeah, unfortunately, only able to secure a 3-month extension. And we do need to, relook at the project as well, because the amount required for the city match is much higher than what the council originally approved. So that's, I'm still hopeful and believing that there will be funding through the infrastructure bill, which will continue to watch when that funding becomes available for specifically for this project. So I did just want to touch on that. And then moving from there, I wanted to add talk a little bit about the trip last week to Juneau, and I would ask that those other 2 that attended would add on as well. I'm just gonna, a few items.
So
I'm sorry.
I don't know if you want to just wait and do that under D2.
I could,
Okay, thank
certainly.
you.
Other than that, that was also under D2. That would be under D2. I don't know if there's any questions on the written report, sorry.
Yeah, so it's a great written report. We had some good stuff in there. Are there any questions or comments with the manager's report? Councilmember Demas?
Yeah, I just have a couple comments and questions. And I spoke with Community Development Director Jason Bigling this morning regarding P&Z meetings. There's been some concern about meetings getting canceled. I think the last one, or the January meeting, was canceled due to a lack of a quorum. And I've had some folks that have had some concern about that due to business just being held up. So we had a good discussion, and I just kind of wanted to let the public and the other council members get an idea of what the approach might be if there is no business on the table, like this time where we're canceling the meeting because there isn't any business, and what may happen if there is a lack of a quorum and there is a lot of business to be taken care of. So I don't know if, Jason, you want to speak on that at all, or if you wanted me to just kind of relay what. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so we do realize that we want to use the commission as efficiently as possible, and so we want to make sure that we are doing the city's business as quickly as possible. When there aren't times to do that, we don't want to call a meeting. We've already kind of cleared the agenda. We don't have any outstanding businesses, so we are canceling next Tuesday's meeting. That'll be coming out soon. But then if something did come up that was urgent, we could always schedule a special meeting to make sure that we keep that kind of thing going. So, but we do plan on having a work session and moving on from there. So.
Okay.
But yeah, happy to. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the ability to schedule special meetings and the urgency when there is business to be taken care of. So I just wanted to make sure that that was shared. So thank you. I just have one more thing. Someone had just reached out to me before the meeting asking if we had made any progress with reaching out for a feasibility study on the rec center because we had dedicated those funds.
The rec center RFP is under legal review at this time and about ready to go out.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Go ahead. I just wanted to make a note of something in the manager's report. We've just been having these crazy swings of weather. So I know with roads, if there's any road hazard concerns, Monday through Friday, 7 to 4, you can call Public Works, which is 224-4058. After hours, it does say you can call Police Dispatch, which is 224, I should say, now it's 907-224-4022. But also probably if folks called the general number, the 224-3331. So if anyone has any road concerns or any issues, to definitely notify Public Works, and they have crews out addressing it all. Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the Borough Assembly report.
Madam Mayor, so Borough Assembly Rep City Edgewater is going to, she was trying to get here, but she will be coming as soon as the Bear Creek flood service area.
Oh yeah, they have a meeting tonight.
Adjourned, so she'll be coming.
So potentially I might do a point of order when she arrives and allow her to give an update. I'll break at an appropriate time, but if she's willing, we'll just do a quick point of order and then allow her to give a brief update. Next on the, so we'll leave that one open. Next on the agenda is the Chamber of Commerce report by Executive Director Kat Sorensen. And this is for January.
Yeah, I'm back. It was only 2 weeks ago, but now we're in January mode. And I put a report in the packet for tonight, but there's some things I want to highlight. The first is I have not arrived with another big stack of visitor guides because they're stuck in freight somewhere. But as soon as they do arrive, we'll be starting a marketing campaign online showing all of our old visitor guides back to like the 60s and then showcasing the new ones. So we're really excited to see that and see how far we've come. We're also in the very early stages of creating the hometown guide, so if you have any ideas or thoughts or concerns about what should be involved in that, or what we should definitely try to include, that's kind of something we'll use to give to people when they first move here for the summer, long term, just kind of help them figure out where to go, who to talk to, what to do. We also have officially set the dates for the 2022 Silver Salmon Derby, which will be August 13th through 21st, so mark your calendars, tell all your friends, it should be really fun. And then the Mount Marathon Race and 4th of July committees have met. Planning is moving forward for a July 4th, 2022 race this year with a festival in conjunction. So we're really looking forward to that. We've already received a lot of vendors reaching out, excited to vend at this year's festival. You guys have been talking about heat pumps a lot, so everybody has been coming and looking at our heat pump. It's been really cool. I've learned a lot about it, and we've set it up to track how much energy the pump uses, and Phil Clues is helping us out with that, so we can aggregate data to see how much electricity it's taking up in conjunction to the heating of it. I will be honest, it was a big learning curve for me to figure out how it works. I still don't really get it, but it's cool. And then some things to look for on Thursday, January 27th, this upcoming Thursday. We're going to be doing a coffee and chat at the chamber. So from starting at 10 a.m., if anybody wants to stop by and talk to me more, you don't hear me enough, or talk with Kellyanne Cavaretta, our new Alaska Small Business Development representative. We'll both be in there along with Karen to answer any questions, help with profiles on the website, anything that you may want to chat about. Speaking of Kellyanne, she's been super busy in her new role at the chamber and has already been meeting with Seward area businesses, but there's a disclosure that I can't ask about any of them, so she doesn't talk to us about it, but we know that she's working with them and they seem to be going along really well. But I called them like confidentiality, not disclosure. And then two more things. Our February event, the winter weekend's coming up, and we're planning a really cool Valentine's Day weekend for anyone looking for some healthy relationships. We're working with SPC on a speed dating. So if you're looking for a romantic relationship, friend relationship, you can RSVP on our website or Facebook, and that's Saturday, February 12th. So you don't have to be single, but it helps. And then we're looking forward at our 2022 marketing strategy. And with that, I've scraped some data along with AirDNA about the small-term rental businesses in town and just the larger rental scene. And something that we gleaned from that is that in July of 2021, people booked an average of 100 days prior to their stay in Seward, which means that the people we're marketing to now are potentially booking for May. So we're taking that into account as well as some other information from that report just to kind of mold our marketing report as best and effectively as it should be. And I hope to have a copy of that strategic marketing report for you next month. And then besides that, any other questions or anything? Comments?
No, great report. Thanks for your comprehensive written report.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the travel report on the legislative meetings in Juneau. So I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Okay. So I wrote down a few things, and again, I would ask you guys to expand on it. What I felt like that we started by celebrating the Lowell Tunnel, the full funding the Lowell Tunnel, $185 million outfall project, and everyone that we met with throughout the time we were there congratulated us. So it was pretty exciting to start on that really fun high note. Throughout all of the meetings, there was a resounding theme, and that Seward has a housing crisis. There are times when we didn't bring it up, but the legislators did, and we explained that the city is in a unique position because we hold a lot of land, and it was expressed that we have a council and administration that desires to intentionally and thoughtfully move some of the land into private hands for development of residential housing. And then we spoke about our needs for expansion of water and sewer, our infrastructure for water and sewer. There was a focus on the jail issue, and I felt we were able to educate the legislators about the issue. And we also conveyed that we desired to be a good partner, but continued funding by our local taxpayers, our CU residents, is not acceptable. To the tune of $500,000 deficit every year is not acceptable. The governor's budget does not include the additional funding for, we're calling it too also because it makes sense, state jails that are operated by municipalities, because in essence that's what they are. There's still time for the amendments to the budget, and this is something that's going to be pushed throughout the legislative season, and I'm hoping that the funding will be increased, and then we will be able to better define our contracts. That's best case scenario. So still keeping a really close eye on the jail issue. I found it interesting that two of the people that we met with asked why Seward doesn't have a ferry. And of course our answer was, if you get us one, we'll take it. It'll be really interesting to see where this conversation goes, because there is interest in Seward having a ferry, so. Met with Nancy Mead from Department of Law, and I know that the mayor took more notes on this. It was explained to us that the Department of Law has no intention of closing the courts in Seward. So those are a few of the notes that I have and that I wanted to convey.
And I'll just add a few things. It was great with that jail situation that our chief has done so much legwork in gathering all those communities, and then AML, Nils joined us, the director of AML, and our lobbyist was able to take that list of communities and really convey to those legislators how that impacted them and why they needed to vote and start working and making sure that the state is meeting their responsibilities and commitment, and how that ramification would fall back on the state and would be even more of a fiscal liability to the state if it was their responsibility. So all that legwork was helpful, the lobbyist was helpful, AML belonging to that organization is phenomenal. One thing that also got mentioned a couple times is a natural gas pipeline project. So I know that the city manager is just doing some follow-up on that. And in addition to the ferry, we did talk to DOT about our airport project, and reiterated some of the concerns of the community and different things. And it was good to hear from the court that they assured us they will be keeping the courthouse here. And then we also talked to them about how important that magistrate position is to the community of Seward being based out of here. And just to wrap it up, we did speak to the new commissioner of DCCED. She was very new to her job, but was just able to speak to her about the economics that we have going on in our community, so that was good. And then, I don't know, Councilmember Demas, did you have any follow-up?
I feel like you guys covered pretty much everything that I had noted here, but the legislative brochure was really big. That was, everybody commented on it, so thank you to Stephen, Jason, Chamber for putting that together. That was great, and it was really cool being the first group to be back at the Capitol. Everybody kept saying this is great to have people back in here, so I feel like we made an impression just that way as well. It was just a really good learning experience for me, so I appreciate everyone sending me.
And the lobbyists kept us very busy, so we
Yeah.
utilized our time there and were exhausted at the end of the night. So we were filling our dance card with lots of things. Thank you to everyone that sent us. Next on the agenda is presentations. We have Hyper presentation by Casey Warner.
Hi, thanks for having me back. I'm Casey Warner. I am the program developer for Happy Youth Programs and Educational Resources, also known as Hyper. I'm here today just to give you guys an update on some of the things that I've been working on. So some of the current barriers that Seward is facing, we're facing a early childhood education workforce shortage, early childhood educator wage, funds that are allocated specifically for childcare capital projects, funds allocated for childcare deserts, which Seward falls under, and increased access to quality and affordable childcare. So some of the things that I've been working on in increasing our early childhood education workforce. I had some conversations with the district about looking at supporting our high school students and being able to secure some education around childhood development. It was brought to my attention that the Kenai Peninsula School District does have a child developmental course that is available to the high school students. It is an online course, so just to make that aware to the community, to high schoolers and parents of high schoolers, that is a potential for them to earn some high school credit, as well as kind of get a glimpse into what they might do after high school. So another thing is providing some technical and financial supports to those interested in completing their Child Development Associate, also known as your CDA. There's a couple of support systems around the state right now through Thread. You can get your CDA through Thread. It is reimbursable, the fee of that. I am also a local resource for anybody that is interested in working towards their CDA. It's maybe somewhere around about 8 weeks if you're staying on top of it. You do have to have 140 hours of hands-on time in a licensed facility or child care group home. And then connecting interested individuals to Thread, as well as some other state partners. There's a ton of financial support right now out there for those interested in going into the field through our UA system. And Thread, all of their training currently is free. CCPO, our child care program office through the state, is funding those trainings through Thread for free for the community of Alaska. So some of those areas I've been working on, communicating with our partners and doing some advocacy work at the state level to learn about those resources and to try and pull some of those into Seward. Our childhood educator wage, I mean, this is really a national problem. But one creative thing that has happened here in the state of Alaska is over in Juneau, they run a program called HEARTS, Hiring, Educating, and Retaining Teaching Staff. This is something that was worked with the City Council of Juneau and Thread. I believe there was a third partner in there, but I can't recall the name right now. But what this program does is it provides a financial incentive to those working in a licensed child care center. They did this because in Juneau they were having issues with their workforce. And so if an individual is working in a licensed facility, they are meeting one of the 3 tiers on their education. Tier 1 is just having your CDA. And then they give a bonus to those individuals. They've been running this program for a number of years now, and they have some data around showing that it has increased their ability to hire and retain quality staff. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe some of the funds from that comes out of their general bucket. So been advocating with state partners to improve the child care assistance program. So looking at their CCPO is looking at doing a piloting a tiered reimbursement incentive for infant and toddler care. So something modeled after this HEARTS program. And then increasing reimbursement to providers to a higher percentile of the market rate. So trying to get some of those funds increased to those working in the field through the state Childcare Supports. So I've been working with CCPO, I've been working with the Early Childhood Network, advocating for some of these areas in the educator wage barrier. Lots of advocating, really been spending a lot of time talking to people, trying to figure out where I can pull some of these resources into Seward. So for the Child Care Capital Project, CCPO has a lot of funds coming down through CRSA and ARPA at the moment. We have a lot of those funds are allocated towards stabilization grants for current licensed programs. Unfortunately in Seward we don't really have those licensed programs, so we're not able to kind of dig into that. So I've been talking with them, trying to get them to allocate some of this money for some capital projects, so that way communities like Seward are able to utilize that to increase our child care capacity. Trying to get some resources to address child care deserts, really more of that, advocating for some of those CRSA and ARPA funds. One of the ways that I've really been working on doing that is working with CCPO in having them develop a innovation grant where communities like Seward that are experiencing a child care deficit can come with their creative ideas that work for our community. Alaska's vast, every community is different, we all have different needs. So we can access some of those funds. I'm hoping that they're gonna put that out in their stage 3 release of funds. They or maybe opening up this week, I think it is, their stage 2, so we still have a little bit of time before some of that is gonna come out into our hands. And then increased access to quality and affordable childcare. Just doing this, advocating, letting them know that there are communities out here that don't have licensed childcare, and these stabilization grants that they're putting out are not helping us recover our economy and being able to allow economic growth. Some conversation starters that I've had. There's an individual up in Anchorage, his name is Eric Croft. And he's spearheading the Anchorage Preschool Project. What they're doing is they're looking at trying to secure a percentage of the marijuana tax funds to support a universal pre-K program up in Anchorage, specifically is where they're at. I did just have a meeting with him last week, and the way that they're looking at doing it is they're putting together some information to talk to the Anchorage Council, and then they're hoping to bring it to a vote of the Anchorage citizens in April of next year to be able to pull some of those marijuana tax funds out of their general fund and have it allocated towards doing a universal pre-K program. I'm interested to know if this is a possibility on the Kenai Peninsula. I've had some conversations with our borough representative, and I've also had some conversations on the other side of the peninsula. At this time, it's just a conversation starter, but I would like to see where that could potentially go. Other pathways to success, building a partnership with the Small Business Association. As we know, Kellyanne has stepped into a role there at the chamber. So I started having some conversations with them to talk about how we could partner in supporting those interested in starting their own small business, offering childcare in their home. They have a lot of really great resources to help people do a business plan, how to access your state license, how to pay your taxes, who to call and get that business startup process going. So I'm going to start doing a call out looking for those interested in starting their own business, operating a child care program. So look out for that. I'm going to be doing a call out trying to identify those individuals interested in going into this field. I am a local resource, so I'm putting it out there. If y'all know anybody that's interested in starting up a child care business, reach out to me. We can help with some startup funds through the state, through ourselves here locally, technical support through the state here locally, additional funding. Once you become licensed, you can access those stabilization grants that are out right now through CCPO. Once you become licensed. So even though it's after the fact that they've released those funds, you can still apply for them. And so something else that I want to put out there as well is if you are interested in operating a licensed child care program, you can do that even if you rent. You do have to have an approval letter from your landlord, but I don't want that to be a barrier for anybody that potentially might be interested in doing so. And on the next slide there, I've got my contact information, so please reach out to me if you have any questions, if there's any clarification, or if I can help support you in starting your child care business.
I'm just kind of curious, you've got on here that you're a local resource for those interested in starting. You said startup funds, and then you referenced technical and financial support for people. Have you been able to, I'm assuming with this money that was gifted to you, are you taking funds from there and forwarding them? And are their financials available?
It's definitely something that we're looking at. I did just start drafting up a grant application to put out into the community once I'm able to identify those interested in starting up a child care business. And I would like to partner that up with the state funds that are currently available and the state resources that are available, so that we can really get them doubled up on resources to be able to move forward.
Okay. So you haven't been giving out any funds yet to anyone interested to move forward in the process?
Not at this time, no.
And then are financials available that maybe we could see, or?
Yeah, like, I don't have anything with me at this moment, but I would definitely be available. I mean, we haven't really spent any of it at this time. But yeah, we can definitely provide that if that's something you're interested in.
So maybe provide to administration and then administration.
Right,
can
to
do-
administration, yeah, I don't, yeah. Thank you, that's all I had.
Are there any other questions? I have a question. So I know you're doing a lot of background information and trying to connect people with resources. Are you still looking for available properties to start up the daycare, whether it's renting or purchasing? Are you still going down that route at all, or?
It's not off the table, but I really have ran into a lot of barriers on securing capital funds for these large projects. There's just not any money out there for the childcare capital projects, and I've looked at a couple of different rural community development grants that are out there through the state. Unfortunately, Seward doesn't meet their requirements to be able to secure those funds. It's not off the table. Everything's open for discussion. So once something comes to light, I'm happy to explore it. And these are just some of the barriers and some of the paths that we're going down, and I'm really just going to explore each and every one until I'm able to find success.
Any other questions? Great, thanks for coming tonight. Appreciate the updates.
Thank you so much.
Next on the agenda are public hearings, ordinances that we've introduced and are up for public hearing and enactment. The first one is Ordinance 2022-001.
Ordinance 2022-001 is amending portions of Seward City Code 15.10.140 definitions related to apartment, boarding house, dwelling, duplex, unit, hostel, posted lodging unit, housing unit, insurance company, licenses, listing site, lodging, hotel, multi-story unit, owner, short-term rental transaction, sleeping unit, townhouse transient, and whole house nightly, and enacting language in 15.10.226K pertaining to short-term rentals. This ordinance was introduced on January 10th, 2022, and is coming tonight for public hearing and enactment.
Great, so we'll start off with administration before we get to the public hearing. And the beginning of this is found on page 61.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will direct any questions to Community Development Director Jason.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members. Yeah, just with this ordinance, we realized that I was not here for all the development of this, so I'm kind of inheriting this kind of midstream. And so I do realize, in looking at this is probably not the most perfect language coming forward, but I do feel like there's maybe 60-70% there that is good. And so, but whatever's not there, we plan on kind of going back and working with that, whatever the case or whatever it comes to. It's kind of this, it is a living document, and so we can just continue to improve it and sharpen it. And so just appreciate your consideration of this and where it stands, and either way, our goal is to make it better. Any questions specifically?
So before we have questions, we'll do the public hearing and then we'll come back for questions. Thank you. So with that, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, is anyone signed in?
No, ma'am, we don't have any.
Is there anyone wishing to speak on this public hearing item? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. And we are back to council. If there's any questions for administration.
We need a motion.
So we introduced,
Yeah.
so it should be on the floor already.
We just introduced it.
No, it was introduced January 10th.
Right.
So we don't need to have a second motion at this
Okay.
meeting. Correct?
Oh, we didn't have a motion.
No. Okay.
Yeah, we need a motion.
Thank you.
So let's move to,
I didn't even, yeah, thank you.
yeah, okay.
Can I
Well,
do
the way I just assumed that we were all good. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I move for the enactment of ordinance 2022-001.
I'll second.
Great, thank you. All right, so now back to council. If there's any questions for administration, go ahead.
I have a question, not necessarily for administration. first thing I'll say is, I know that Planning and Zoning, the commission has done a lot of work on this over an extended period of time, but I think that we need to, before we enact this, probably look at it a little bit more and refine it a bit more, because there's a lot of loose stuff in there, and I don't feel comfortable putting this into the code until we can clean it up a bit more. So I don't know if maybe we could postpone it, maybe have a work session to go over some of this, even with some of the P&Z folks, possibly a joint, but that's just my comment, my thoughts on it.
I agree with Councilmember Calhoun. I keep reading it, it's confusing, and if it's confusing to somebody that watched almost all of the work sessions and sessions on this while P&Z was doing it, not to disparage P&Z at all, but I think it just needs more work. We should have a document within that is easily understandable, and I'm not sure the best way to go about it, if it would be to, I'm not sure a work session with us is going to help. I'm just not sure where to go with it.
I guess my suggestion would be is if that's where we're meeting, that we should vote and fail this, so that if it goes back, just be really clear on the record that we want P&Z to tackle it again. And that way, by postponing, they're not stuck to this language if they want to really redo things. So we could fail this, and then they could almost have a clean slate, and not being amending amendments to the amendments.
Right.
But I do want on the record, because I watched a number of the meetings, we very much appreciate all their help, which you've also said, but I think it might be nice to have some clean eyes on it. I know that other communities maybe have been going along with their process, and we can steal some things from what's been done in other communities in the meantime. Councilmember Osenka, you have?
No, I'm good.
So, are we ready to call for a vote on this? Okay.
Voting on the enactment of Ordinance 2022-001. Osenga?
No.
Calhoun?
No.
McClure?
No.
DeMoss?
No.
Mayor Terry?
No.
That ordinance has failed.
Next on the agenda is Ordinance 2022-002.
Ordinance 2022-002 is amending portions of the Seward City Code 15.10.140 definitions to amend the definition for light manufacturing and to amend 15.10.226 land uses allowed table, allowing light manufacturing in a central business district with a conditional use permit.
The motion and a second.
This ordinance was introduced January 10, 2022, and is coming tonight. So
Okay.
But we need a motion.
Okay, I move for the enactment of Ordinance 2022-002.
I'll second.
Okay, administration?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do want to point out that the council directed that the Planning and Zoning Commission review and make a change to the land use table to allow light manufacturing in the central business district, and this ordinance is coming back to you as directed. It's coming to you from Planning Commission as directed.
So I will go ahead and open up the public hearing. Clerk, is there anyone signed in to speak at the public hearing?
No, ma'am.
Is there anyone wishing to speak? Go ahead and close the public hearing, and I'll look for discussion or questions to administration. Councilmember?
So, the only thing that I was looking for in this was, because of the terminology of light manufacturing versus, and I know heavy's not in this, but I'm just saying with the terminology being used, what I didn't see in here was anything that was, it pretty much, I can't think of the right word now. Let me see if I can find it. But my issue was with the cup. Would that handle safety issues or code violations or fire codes or anything like that? That's where I was trying to get at. So that would all be, and that's only a once in its lifetime, so they only have to do the agreement once and then stick to the initial agreement, and we take it on face value that they're sticking to the cup, or?
Yeah, so what they do is what we did is, just to kind of answer your first question, is we did define, we wanted to recognize light manufacturing that was currently going on, that was being done well, with, I would say, kind of the theme of the central business district that we want happening, the business that has traditionally happened. And so they did review the definition of light manufacturing, because we want light manufacturing there, but we don't want any manufacturing that's going to interfere with other people's businesses through like sight, sound, smell, interference, and those types of things. And and also too, we wanted to recognize, we didn't want to devalue someone's business that's already down there. So in this type of thing, if someone is doing something like, let's say it's the examples we have down there are the brewing company. So if someone wanted to come in and start like a brewing company, what they would do is they would apply through the CUP process, and then we would go ahead and it would go through to make sure, hey, is the manufacturing for beer, are you doing it safely, are you meeting these requirements that we hold light manufacturing to within that district. And so if there's any significant changes within their business, then they have to come back around again. Or if their business changes hands, they have to come back around again. And so there is kind of some checks in the system that way.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Did I answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Since you're up, I think this was asked and answered when we introduced this, but the businesses that are already doing light manufacturing, this will legitimatize them.
Yes.
But only if they come forward and get a CUP? Or they're legitimatized just because?
They're legitimatized because they exist, and normally we kind of honor that as you're being grandfathered in into that code and just honor that. But if they were to sell their business, then it would come back around.
I just wanted that heard.
Yeah, no, we get,
Councilmember Demas?
I just have a quick comment that might ease your concern on the one-time CUP. There are certain types of businesses like bars and marijuana retailers or manufacturers that have to go through the additional process every year. So like the liquor licenses that we approve, for example, those need approval from the fire department, from the council, from finance, and from the borough every year to get renewed regardless.
Right.
Any more questions for the development director? Okay, Madam Clerk, I think we're ready for a vote.
Voting on the enactment of ordinance 2022-002, Demas,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
and Mayor Terry. Yes, that ordinance is enacted.
Next on the agenda is ordinance 2022-003.
Ordinance 2022-003 is amending portions of Seward City Code 15.10.226, land uses allowed, J, employee campgrounds. This ordinance also was introduced January 10th, 2022, and is coming tonight for public hearing and enactment.
And what are the wishes of council?
I move for the enactment of ordinance 2022-003.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Administration?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am looking at this and, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that there isn't a tie back to the other, no, it's okay, I'm sorry. If I may.
Was this tied back to the other ordinance that was
Okay, all right, thank you. I just want to make sure there wasn't a tie back because they were all coming forward at the same time for a reason, and I just wanted to make sure of that. This comes out of really discussion of the fishing industry, so to speak. I don't want to name a certain one, but that has employee campgrounds already. And as you can see in code, employee campgrounds are allowed, and previously the campgrounds were allowed under a different portion of code. So we wanted to clarify that it makes sense that they are allowed under the employee campground, and to specify that for the purposes of this section, the new language, a camping unit is described as a modified camping connex, provided living facilities for one or more persons. And then it goes on to add extra parameters. So in other words, an employee campground, RVs and tents are not allowed within that. Previously, in the definitions, it described as a campground as only allowing RVs and tents.
Do we need to take a break? Do you
Yes,
want to look at
I'd like to, need to.
So let's go ahead and take a 10-minute recess, and we'll pick up again at 8:05. Is that what you want to do?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. So
we are back on the record.
We'll call the meeting back into order after our break. And so administration took a break to make sure that there wasn't any unforeseen consequences, but of failing the first ordinance, and it sounds like they were separate.
They are. Thank you.
Yeah. And so we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anyone signed in for the public hearing, Madam Clerk?
No, ma'am.
Is there anyone in the public wishing to speak to this item in public hearing? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Are there questions for administration or discussion? I have one question that I just noticed later, right before this meeting. So on page 111, it's increasing the number of calendar days per year, which I agree with. So it's J1 on page 111 of the packet. And the employee campgrounds for the established businesses are going from 150 to 180 days per calendar year, which seems more appropriate as our fishing window and what's being processed in town expands and building and other things. But there's enough days between April 15th and September 30th that falls within that 180 days. But was there any discussion, was there any need to expand, in addition to the 180 days, the dates themselves? That's my question.
Yeah, so I did want to comment, they do need a longer window, which is nice to expand to 180 days, but that also matches the fire code piece too.
Okay.
So that way our fire code matches up with that, so it was really kind of a natural thing in both ways. And that's kind of the way it is set up right now, but then they can and they will apply for a permit to extend outside of those 180 days if they need it.
Okay.
So they can't, like if they need it, depending on how their seasons go, it's flexible for them to get outside of that if they should need to at some point.
And then the April 15th, like that calendar date to September 30th, like those dates are doable, or does that need to be expanded at all?
That's
Or
5.5 months.
Yeah, I just meant the times of the year. Was there any need? Did businesses look at that at all, or was it brought up?
It was in discussion, and because of the permit to move outside those dates, they kind of seemed like they were a little bit, they could shift them around a little bit, and that's kind of how they would apply with their permit.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I know it gets cold outside of that too, so you don't necessarily want to have an employee campground. At that point, you want to build a bunkhouse, but.
Yeah, yeah, so I mean, just to give you a little bit of background discussion, is that when we're talking about that larger window, pretty much the window when actually those are fully filled is actually really rather small. And those shoulder windows are only when they're really gonna have like a very small skeleton crew running anyway. And so kind of the main salmon season is what sticks in the middle. Those are the big height, that's when they're really gonna be filled. And then the stuff that's out there is kind of when it's pretty low populations inside there. And so when they do need those windows, it's not like they're having a whole crew in there, it's just like a few extra people in there.
I guess I just want on the record, just some reasoning behind this is I think working towards having some of these camping connexes, and I know maybe we're trying to make something new work, and we'll have to look at it later and see if it can be updated, but it's just a lot safer for those transient workers to be able to be behind a locked door and walls as opposed to camping tents and different things. So I feel like it's more hygienic, it's safer for those folks that are working in our community, and that's why I am willing to support this. I think that maybe as we get better at doing this and clarify some other things with the housing, like this might be something else that we also need to clarify, but I think we need to move forward just because of the workforce. That's my comment.
Madam Mayor, can I just add something too? And within this, you do not see that there is a need to move these connexes because there isn't, they are, the way that they're set up, it's actually better if they stay that's the way that they are, that they're set up. So there is not a requirement that it be moved, that they be moved. I just want to clarify that because there's been some discussion about that.
So does this just pertain to this particular group, or is this a citywide change? I mean, this could be applied to any other business that has employee housing?
Employee campground, any of that has employee campground.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was using the example of fishing, but
Yes.
thank you for clarifying that. Good. Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, can we call for a vote, please?
Voting on the enactment of ordinance 2022-003, Osenga,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That ordinance is enacted.
Next on the agenda, we get to unfinished business, items postponed from the previous agenda. So this has a motion and a second, and is already on the floor. Resolution 2022-008. Madam Clerk, if you could read it into the minutes.
Resolution 2022-008 is authorizing the sale of real property located at 1911 Dora Way, also known as the Dora Way Playground, by sealed bid as provided by Seward City Code. This resolution was postponed from January 10th, 2022. Your main motion is on the floor.
And so I'll turn it over to administration to give another overview, if you would, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The origination of this came about because we have been, as you know, looking at the lots and that the city owns and what would make sense that we don't need ownership of. As we know, the Jesse Lee Park is right in that neighborhood, in that area, that would, we would still have a viable park there. So it is one of the lots that we believe that could be sold for residential housing. And yeah, that's the origination of why it has come to you. And I did want to expand on that. This is the first step in the process, that the council is authorizing us to start the sealed bid process, and it will come back to you and have a required public hearing as well for the final sale.
I have a question for administration, if I might. So I know that we've been working with ADEC on the Jesse Lee home property. Is there a timeline for that?
Community Development Director has been working on that.
Jason, good morning meeting.
Pull up the chair tonight. So I want to step back a little bit so we can understand the whole timeline. When this was originally brought forward, there was a little bit of a delay as to the ultimate kind of fate of Jesse Lee home structures and all that kind of stuff. That was a little bit delayed in us getting going. And when they were digging in there and removing the structures, what they found is there were actually old structures underneath the structures, so it wasn't actually the structures that were there that were the biggest problem. It was the structures underneath them that have been destroyed, and they built over the top of those. And so that took that. When you find those kinds of things that take their time and you start looking through the analysis, they gotta take lots of pictures, and so that kind of lengthened our timeline out. And then with that, we've had a departmental transition, and that kind of created a little bit in there. But with that, what they found underneath there, it did create a little bit more complexity. And so we, the engineering group put things together. We pushed that off to ADEC. We just got their work plan, our work plan that we have to abide by. We gave that to the engineers and to the contractor. And so the contractor is now tweaking our estimate for complete removal and cleanup. And so we should be getting that back very shortly here. And so with that, then once the ground thaws, they can get back to work on that. So that I think we're getting to a place where we're finalizing plans and we can go ahead and just get it fixed and get it moved out. So, and then some of that material does have to be shipped to lower 48 because it is at that higher level that we don't have the site here in Alaska. And so, but that's kind of where we're at. So we're going to wait for that, for the bid to come back. That'll tell us a little bit better timeline, and we'll be in communication with you guys about that. But we're hoping when the ground thaws, they can start moving and get that taken care of.
So I guess I'm going to try and ask, how do you think that these two projects would mesh together if we were to, what's the timeline if we say, yes, go ahead with the sealed bid for the sale? How long are you thinking that's going to take to put together? How long do you think that'll take for the sale to happen and then the transfer of property? Do you have any idea about that?
We could put out the sealed bid, for any length of time. We've talked about a month to 6 weeks to have it put out, and then after that, then we would have to time it with a public hearing and the resolution. So that's at least 8 weeks, probably even 10. And then we do have stuff to do with our attorney, so then another 2 weeks with that. So probably 3 months is where we are.
And is that including the, we would basically have to have this come before us again?
Yes.
Okay,
You do.
Well, I have a motion and then I'll speak to it after. I would like to add a new section 3 and change section 3 to section 4. The new section 3 will read, sealed bid auction will be held once an alternate playground is developed in the neighborhood. And I'll look for a second.
I'll second.
So I'll back up and say, I think every single voice we hear says we need to develop housing in Seward. I don't want this to fail because I think this is a good, reasonable piece of property that's appropriate for a single-family home. However, I also hear about the concerns of the children in the area. I know that some of the delays at the Jesse Lee home are holding up what the plans were when this all started. And my motion doesn't specifically say that Jesse Lee home property because, if there's something else or if there's a corner or somewhere else in that neighborhood that maybe isn't appropriate for a home, but, the city wants to develop it as a park, that's why I left it open. So by that motion, I'm hoping that we approve this and then all the processes continue to happen. Once that Jesse Lee home site's done, we get the, playground set up there, and then the rest of the process, we've already given administration permission to move forward. So that's my intention with the motion. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just have a comment. I'm so torn because I've gotten more calls over the past, year or so of people wanting to know when this property was going to be available. Then I've gotten input on people not wanting it done now, if that made any sense. I don't know that it's that urgent, but we are, there's no guarantee on anything. There's no guarantee on a timeline. I don't know about the amendment. I would like to go ahead with this, I think, as it is, personally. We'll see how that goes.
Just a couple comments. I really appreciate everyone that did reach out, but like Vice Mayor McClure stated, we've been asked repeatedly by so many people, why aren't you guys doing something about the housing problem? Why isn't the city doing anything about the housing problem? And I know this is just one lot, but I do believe that we can find another location for the playground. And some other points that were made were that there's lots of people in other neighborhoods that have to drive their kids or their daycare kids to playgrounds. So I understand that this is a utilized playground, and I hope that the timing lines up, and I hope that we can find another area for the equipment. And I wonder if we could use a part of the Jesse Lee home land that isn't maybe contaminated. I don't know what we're dealing with there, but just enough for maybe that equipment to relocate it in the spring while we sell the land. I don't know, but I think I would like to support it as is as well.
Madam Clerk, I think we're ready for a vote on the amendment.
Voting on the amendment to add a new section 3. McClure?
No.
DeMoss?
No.
Osenga?
No.
Calhoun?
Yes.
And Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That amendment has failed.
Now, main motion is back on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Then I'm going to throw out another amendment for new section 3 and a subsequent section 4. So I'm going to have it say, no play equipment will be removed except for safety reasons or replacement until after council approval of sale.
Can you repeat that, please?
No play equipment will be removed except for safety reasons or replacement until after council approval of sale. And I'll look for a second.
I'll second that.
So the reason I'm making that motion is as we're going through the timeline, if there's any delays on the city side, I would hate to see all that equipment taken away and then have, a bidding irregularity that like kicks the timeline of when we're gonna sell that or anything happen and have that property sit vacant for any reason on our part. So I just want to make sure that when we're ready to move the equipment, it can be removed for, so it jives with the timeline and we never have just an empty lot sitting there while we're going through the process. So that's my intent of that. So is there any further discussion, Madam Clerk?
Voting on that amendment to create a new section 3. DeMoss,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Osega,
Yes.
McClure.
Yes.
And Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That amendment is approved.
So now the main resolution is back on the floor. Are there any further discussions or amendments? Or questions? Go
I
ahead.
just have a comment that in the interim period of time, can we have them find out about the Jesse Lee property and what's available, if possible?
I can answer that.
Yeah.
It was explained to me that at this time, none of it is available until the cleanup happens because what they're hoping is, DC explained that they're hoping that they will declare a part of it a contaminated site, which will be listed as a contaminated site, but release the rest of the site. So we have to do the cleanup and the mitigation first before they will deem parts of the property clean and contaminated.
Madam Clerk, I think we're ready for the vote on the resolution as amended.
Voting on resolution 2022-008 as amended, Calhoun,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
DeMoss,
Yes.
Osega,
Yes.
and Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is resolution 2022-013. Madam Clerk, if you could read that title into the minutes.
Resolution 2022-013 is supporting the Alaska Railroad Corporation's efforts to secure funding for the Seward passenger dock project.
And so before we have a motion and a second, I'm going to pass the gavel to the Vice Mayor. I'm going to go ahead and declare a conflict of interest per Seward City Code 210035C. I do work for the Alaska Railroad as the port manager. And since it was decided on December 3rd of 2021 that the railroad will be the key developer in the dock and the cruise ship terminal project, I believe that it is unavoidable for the public to perceive that I have a conflict of interest. So I want to declare that conflict.
And I rule that you do have a conflict.
Yes.
So I don't know if I have to gavel that. Okay. So, at this point, I'll ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2022-013 and a second.
I'll make that motion.
Can you second it? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 2022-013. Administration, do you have something on this? She really went away.
I really don't have anything more to add than what is in the addenda statement, other than that this really does express the city's support for the railroad obtaining the funding that they need for to complete the project. And they do plan on obtaining approval for a bond. They have to obtain approval for a bond, but the bond will not be coming from the state. So that's really what this resolution does, is that we really do want the project to be completed here in Seward for, obviously, for many reasons, and this expresses the support. And what it also does is that when we are speaking to legislators, the council has adopted this, and so then we can all speak as one voice on this topic.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Councilmember Calhoun.
Just to make sure that everybody that's listening or watching understands, this doesn't financially obligate the city
Correct.
to this project.
Correct. We are not putting any funds towards this project.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? This is just support, resolution of support. Okay, seeing no more, I guess we're ready to vote, Madam Clerk.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2022-013, Demas.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, your last. Calhoun,
Yes.
Oseda,
Yes.
and McCoy.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Okay, thank you very much. And I would pass the gavel back, there she comes. I thought maybe I could get to introduce citizens' comments, but no. I'm giving the gavel back. There you go. Madam Mayor.
Great. All our other new business items were approved. We have no informational items and reports. Next is citizen comments. There's no sign-in for this comment period. Time is limited to 5 minutes per speaker, and we'll have folks step to the dais if they wish to speak. Anyone wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none. Next on the agenda is council and administration comments in response to citizen comments. And so I will start with administration if you have any comments.
I really do not this evening, other than to thank you for, this agenda as far as listening and just really being active in helping to, I don't want to say we're going to solve, but tackle the housing crisis that we have here. And I just really appreciate that the council, one, recognizes and is supportive of the administration as we move forward. We're going to maybe start and steps, because we're navigating new territory. So I really appreciate your support and your patience as we move along with this process. Thank you.
I'll start with Councilmember Oseda.
I would just like to say this is a great meeting, great work. Thank you, administration, and thanks to the council for administration and council kind of helping me with the questions that I had tonight. Be COVID safe, be safe out there.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Calhoun.
Just everybody's been doing a lot of work. I think one thing that maybe we'll look at in the future, we'll figure that out, is maybe reinstituting a little stricter R1 zoning might help solve some of the housing issues that we have without getting into too much detail on that, but I think that's something that we'll probably need to look at. And the weather's not fun, so everybody just be careful out there. You guys have been doing a great job trying to keep stuff clean and safe, and it's hard to keep up with this stuff, so everybody just be careful.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Demas.
I wanted to thank administration for taking the housing needs seriously and really just going for it and bringing us back options to consider, and hope that you don't get discouraged when people are worried about a certain piece of land and there's a lot of discussion about it, because I think that there will be some that are going to be more controversial than others. But like you just said, Jeanette, it's something that is navigated territory for us. So, I think that we're going to get there, and it will be a process. And I really appreciate everyone that reached out to me, just the public. I just can't make it clear enough that it's so important to reach out to us, because I really take what people say into consideration in how my votes are going to be that evening. So call, text, email me, anything, your thoughts on anything that's on the agenda. And I wanted to congratulate Victoria Monaco for her position on P&Z and thank her for stepping up. That's an important position, and I'm excited that we have someone interested. And thanks, Kat from the Chamber, for your really great report. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Oh, thank you. I appreciated the fullness of this agenda and that we dealt with things in a good and logical manner. We've had a lot of input on a lot of items, and I always feel badly when, there's two sides to everything and you can't vote the way everybody wants, so you have to understand that I think we all weigh what we hear and try to do the best for Seward. So I even interviewed my grandson about the Doorway Park. In fact, our assistant city manager was on the phone with me, and he told me his favorite part of it, so hopefully that gets moved now. But I also wanted to give a shout out, I wasn't going to say this, but the Polar Day Parade was so cool, and I want to give a shout out to our policemen that were involved in that, because every year they go by my mom's house and I get her up in the window and she got to see them. And this year my son was the bear, which was pretty cool, although, yeah, that was neat. And one of the policemen actually, I believe, stopped his car to stop traffic so the little kids across the street could get candy, and I think that was just awesome. And I already told the chief, but I just want to thank our police force for being that way, and that was neat for those kids to see that too, I think. I have a new thing. I'm sort of asking out here if anybody's actually watching this and they could call me, but I came to the realization that I actually don't know the whole way back history of our lagoon. And there aren't a lot of us here that were here as far back as I go, and I know how it was when I was little, but if there's anybody around that can remember or can direct me, there's not a lot written about how our lagoon developed. It used to be on both sides. The dump was there once. I know all these things, but the timeline. So I got a new research project, so I'm appealing to any historians out there if you want to do a deep dive into that. And I guess that's all I got.
Thank you. Just wanted to thank P&Z again for all their deep dive and hard work, and I know that they'll continue with that, and because we have PAPCAB in their list, I know PAPCAB does a lot of work too. Not to neglect HP, but those are the two folks that we had on our agenda this evening. It's exciting that people are so engaged with those heat pumps. I know it has some challenges, but I am excited with the federal funding coming through. That might be a sexy enough project that kind of fits right in there, so I want to thank administration for looking and searching through there and making sure that if there's granting opportunities that we take advantage of those and continuing to ask for those extensions. Thanks to all our city departments. I know electric department was out. Councilmember Calhoun mentioned the street departments, hardworking. I see a lot of activities happening at the library. The harbor, I know, is doing a lot of ship lifts, and those ladies, the office people just did the renewals. Fire department, police department, finance department, I just know everyone's working very hard for the community, and I appreciate that. And it was mentioned earlier that there's a flood board meeting tonight also. So if you have an opportunity, go back and watch a flood board meeting. Those folks are both inside and outside city limits, and they're approving development permits. So lots of things happening. And the last thing is actually for council. The city clerk handed out her first part of her evaluation, and we need to come up with a tabulation team. Usually we have 2 people sitting on that, so I'm just curious if there's anyone willing to. I'll step out since there are new forms. I'm happy to be on that team if someone wants to join me. Okay, so Sue and I will be on that tabulation team. So, Madam Clerk, we'll look to you, maybe just email us the timeline on what that looks like, and then get the information out to council when folks have to get everything back to us. Does anyone object to that? Sue and I on that? Okay.
There's other opportunities.
There's
coming up.
plenty of opportunities.
And there is a calendar in the packet I gave you.
Okay, perfect, great. So if you could just maybe send those forms out and remind folks. So I will adjourn the meeting at 8:35.